Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Donovan, and tonight I want to address a comment that I got specifically on a video that I did for the Apple Watch Series 4. So I believe I made the video about 3 months ago, and someone named Cornelius, he's right over here, made a comment in that video basically saying that the Apple Watch Series 4 is not a watch that is for serious runners. So basically he was saying, you're not a serious runner, the Apple Watch Series 4, stop reviewing it because it's not a watch for serious runners. Well, I beg to differ. And he also said in that video, or in the comments, that the Garmin Vivo Active 3 Music, also not a serious watch for runners. The Samsung Galaxy Watch, also same thing. And the Amazfit Stratus. So also, he said, basically, none of those watches are for serious runners. You need to review something like a Polar Vantage or the Suunto 9 or the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, or Plus line. And so with that being said, about a month ago, I decided to take him up on that offer. I went out and got myself a Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. I've had it a month now. I've been using both these watches, so yeah, I'm one of those weirdos wearing two watches all the time now. And I review a lot of watches. So I want to go ahead and compare these two watches tonight. Kind of a weird comparison because I don't think they're really designed for the same group of people. But I want to talk about I would call myself a serious runner. I run about 6-7 miles every single day. I've been running marathons and half marathons for over half my life at this point. So yeah, I'd call myself a serious runner. And tonight I want to talk about, from a runner's perspective, which one of these two watches is the better watch for me personally. Now, for you, it might be a different story. What watch works for me might be different than what watch works for you. So let me just go ahead and get to it. And we're going to go ahead and compare up the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus to the Apple Watch Series 4. All right, so the first thing I want to go ahead and compare between these two watches is the prices. So if you're looking into these two watches, chances are you probably already know a little bit about the prices, and it's real obvious that both of these are luxury purchases regardless of which one you get. Now, the Garmin Fenix line, the 5 line, that is, 5 Plus line I should say, starts off at $649. It goes all the way up to $1,100. So there's the 5S Plus, which is the cheapest one at $649 for the non-Sapphire edition, and you go all the way up to $1,100 for the 5X Plus, so a little bit larger than one you see here. And that one goes up to $1,100 if you get the Sapphire edition. Now the version you see here, this is the 5 Plus non-Sapphire edition. This one was $700 regularly. I was able to pick it up for $550 on a Black Friday deal, so I got it for $150 off. Now, this watch over here, the Apple Watch Series 4, you can get the cheapest version of it, the 42 millimeter one with just GPS, no cellular service. That one is $400. The version you see here is regularly $500, so this is the 44 millimeter with cellular connection, so I pay $10 a month through T-Mobile to get cellular connection to this device. And the most expensive one, I believe, is $800, or at least that was the most expensive one I was able to find. Basically, you just get stainless steel here, and then you also get a different version or nicer band here. I believe it's the Milanese band is the one that costs $800. So either way, regardless of which one you're looking at, they're both very expensive devices. So certainly, if you're looking for something more budget friendly, I wouldn't recommend either of these two watches. I'd probably recommend something like the Amazfit Stratus, a fantastic GPS smartwatch designed specifically for runners that you can get for less than $200. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about the design of the two watches, and there are quite a few differences when it comes to the design of these two. First of all, this one has an always-on display, whereas the Apple Watch Series 4 does not have an always-on display. In fact, I can just shut it off by covering up the display, as you saw there. This one has a much more rugged design. As you can see, we have stainless steel here on the front and on the back. You do also have that option of sapphire glass, which I believe the Apple Watch Series 4 does have a sapphire glass option as well. We have physical buttons. There's 5 physical buttons here on the Garmin, and those physical buttons are basically how you're going to interact with the watch. There is no touchscreen at all, and that's definitely an advantage when it comes to if you're going to get all sweaty on the watch. Obviously, it's going to be an advantage to have the option of using physical buttons. So when you're doing splits, that's another one where you can do splits much more easily if you have the option of physical buttons. And yeah, just in general, I would say as a runner, I definitely prefer being able to use physical buttons in order to do splits and things like that. So that is definitely an advantage here. Obviously, again, much more rugged than what you get here on the Apple Watch Series 4. And there's our heart rate sensor and our charging dock there as well. All right, so that's the design of the Fenix 5 Plus. The Apple Watch Series 4, I'm not going to call this a dainty design, but some would call it a girly design. I definitely don't feel like this is girly in any way, but it obviously has a square design versus a circular design. This one is going to be obviously a little bit more prone because look at here, we have our glass right here that's not being protected, whereas the glass on here is protected by that stainless steel lip. Over here, you're probably going to want to get a case to protect it if you're worried about it. I've actually never had a case on mine for 3 months. I've been using it, no issues at all. There might be some scratches along the edges, but I don't really care. It's a watch, and I don't care if my glass gets a little bit scratched. Not a big deal to me. But here, obviously, everything's going to be touch interacting. We do have 2 physical buttons. This one's going to be our crown, so that's kind of cool. We can go into our apps and we can interact with things with that crown, so that twists. So you're probably familiar with that. And then we have a second physical button here. Now, one major difference you have with the Apple Watch Series 4 is we do also have a microphone and no speaker on here, but we do have a heart rate sensor that works very, very well. So that is pretty much the design of the Apple Watch Series 4. One advantage I would say the Apple Watch Series 4 has in terms of design is the fact that the bands are removable, which they are also on the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. However, there's just a lot more options available out there. A lot of third-party sellers making bands for the Apple Watch Series 4. All right, so now I want to go ahead and talk about the functionality of these 2 watches and compare them up. And let me just be very clear, there is absolutely no possible way for me to cover all the functionality designed specifically for runners built into these 2 watches, and certainly not all of the functionality of these 2 watches because that would be nearly impossible. For me, there's basically 3 things that I find important that I want when I'm running. So number 1 is the heart rate sensor. GPS is very, very important. And number 3, and this is what makes me kind of a softie when it comes to running, but I want to be able to listen to, at a minimum, be able to listen to music. So all those things are available on both of these watches. And the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, when it comes to music, we have a number of options. So here is a song that I have apparently on the watch. And if I go into this, so I'm going to use this physical button over here to go into it, and we'll use the menu and then go into my library, and you can see that I have a number of Spotify playlists here that I have downloaded onto the watch. And when you go into the watch, you can actually just re-upload. So these are Spotify playlists. You have to be a Spotify premium member in order to download playlists to the watch, but it does have the option of iHeartRadio. I believe it also has Deezer as an option available here as well, which I technically am subscribed to as well. But you do have a number of options, but then you can also transfer music over to the watch as well. Now, when it comes to the fitness features, another thing, obviously this one has all-day heart rate, and plus having that always on screen is really nice while you're running. Now with the Apple Watch Series 4, you basically just flip it up while you're running and it's going to turn on immediately, so it's basically like always on, except that it's not really literally always on. Also, another advantage here is that this one is going to be very visible in any kind of light. Now in the dark, you do have the light, and if you flip it up, it will turn the light on as well in the dark. Whereas over here, this one is an AMOLED display. It's actually plenty bright during the day. I've never had any issues seeing it even in the brightest sunlight, so that's really not a complaint there. It's just that this one has that always on display available as well. Over here, this is probably an area where I'd say the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus has the biggest advantage, other than having like downloaded maps right onto the watch. So if you're out on trails, you have that available as well. But you have here basically your training productivity. So it's going to tell you your VO2 max, which technically the Apple Watch Series 4 also will show you. It gives you kind of like how long you should wait to run again, your training load, so it's going to let you know where your training load is. And then this is kind of cool. This is actually one of my favorite features, and it's not really useful. Honestly, you could look this up and go to like a race predictor calculator, but I really like the fact that it has this race predictor, so that's kind of cool. And my goal is actually to get down closer to like 2:45 for the marathon here pretty soon. I'll be running one in June. And then you can go into your last workout right here on the watch as well. And it's going to give you a bunch of details. So tons of information. I mean, there's definitely no shortage of data when it comes to running or whatever fitness activity you're doing. If it's cycling, swimming, or any of the other fitness activities you might be involved in, this one has a ton of options. But obviously for me as a runner, it has the three things I want. Now, when it comes to the Apple Watch Series 4, again, we have our heart rate sensor. We have GPS, and it's been very accurate. And you can see there's a ton of other options here when it comes to working out. Now, a big advantage, again, is the fact that this one has physical buttons, whereas here we're going to do a touch screen. And so if I start a run, let's say I'm out on a run, and I go ahead and start it. So first of all, it's going to start off right now, not even going to tell me that I have GPS locked. But then if I want to end it, I have to swipe over and hit end. So that's how you're going to end it. And actually, this is kind of annoying, but you can't really go in and see that workout. It won't even show you that on the watch. There's nowhere to go in and see it. So that's a little bit unfortunate. However, of course, you can use pretty much any app that you want with the workout. So let's say you want Strava, you can use Strava, or you can use Runkeeper, any of the fitness apps, whatever one you might use to track your workouts. It's pretty much available here. So Map My Run, Strava, yeah. So anyways, they're all there. Now, the one thing that I really love about the Apple Watch Series 4, especially the cellular version, is the fact that I have radio. So I can pretty much, so rather than having to listen to the same playlist over and over, which you can transfer those, you can change those up with Spotify. But here I can go into stations. You can see, I mean, pretty much whatever I feel like listening to at the moment, I can listen to. I even listened on Monday to the National Championship football game while I was running with ESPN Radio, so that's really cool. Also, podcasts. I'm a huge podcast junkie, so over here I can listen to my podcasts as well. So tons of options there. So whatever podcasts you have on your phone, you can also listen here. So you can download them, or if you have the cellular version, you can just listen to them whenever you want. So that's also very cool. And other apps that I like to use here, we also have, of course, Apple Music. So I have some my playlist downloaded right onto the watch. Some other things worth mentioning here. So I mentioned here that the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus has the maps. So that's definitely maybe a disadvantage here, except right over here, this little app called View Ranger, you can actually download maps right onto the watch. So just like what you would get here, you could download them right onto the watch over here using this app called View Ranger. And there are other ones available as well, but you can see, go into the map, and I can actually like track myself while I'm out, and you can see there's some stats here, and it's going to go into, basically this is more for like if you're on a trail, just like what you would be doing over here with the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, and it will actually like show you the trails and things like that, especially if you have them pre-downloaded onto the watch. But there's a ton more that both these watches can do. There's definitely no way for me to go into every single thing that they can do, but overall I think the Apple Watch Series 4 really matches up quite well. The disadvantage the Apple Watch Series 4 has, of course, is with intervals. So if you're a big interval trainer, you're going to have to use the touchscreen to do intervals, which is a bit, it's not the best. And we do have an app up here that I use for interval training, so it's actually called literally intervals. Whereas over here, it's pretty much just built right into the watch. And then, of course, the fact that this one has physical buttons, again, is a huge advantage. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the battery life of these two watches, and there's zero question about which one of these two has the better battery life. Generally speaking, if I'm using the Apple Watch Series 4 heavily, meaning I'm listening to my music and GPS while I'm running, in general, I run about 6, 7, 8 miles a day. I can get through a day and a half. If I'm pushing it, I might be able to get through 2 full workouts or 2 full days with the Apple Watch Series 4, but that would be pushing it. There's no question there. It does charge up pretty fast, so that's awesome. But yeah, in order to get through 2 full days, you have to kind of use it minimally. Now, if you're not using it for GPS and you're not using it for Bluetooth, listening to music while you're running, then you can actually probably get 3 days, but that's if you're using it super lightly. Whereas with the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, I can easily get through 4 or 5 days of battery, and that's using the GPS all the time for workouts. So I pretty much, every time I go for a run, I'm always using the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. Now, if you use the Bluetooth music, that is going to burn through the battery a little bit faster, but again, then there's zero question you're going to be able to get through a minimum, I would say, of 3 to 4 days. And generally speaking, I'm getting more like 5, maybe 6 days of battery life on the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. So there's no question here. If you are somebody who's going to be on maybe you're an Ironman triathlete, clearly the Apple Watch Series 4 is not going to last through that entire thing. If you're an ultra marathon runner, then you definitely want something more like the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus. Again, the Apple Watch Series 4 is clearly not meant for ultra marathoners as well. But battery life, clearly the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus is the winner. All right, so the last thing I want to address is who are these watches for? So I want to go ahead and start off with the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, and I want to mention a few groups of people that I think this watch could be for. So number one, if you are someone who likes to go out hiking a lot, you're on a lot of different trails often, the map options here that are available are fantastic for that. If you're an ultra marathoner, obviously this could be a fantastic watch for you. If you're a triathlete, because of the fact you have physical buttons, you can easily track your triathlon as you switch from swimming to biking to running. So definitely for triathletes. Also, if you're a super serious runner and you're doing a lot of interval training, I definitely think there's a huge advantage to having something like the Garmin Fenix 5 Plus because of the physical buttons. I should also mention here that the Garmin 645 Music could also be a great option for you as well, and considerably less expensive. I think it's more like $400 for that one. The difference there is that you don't have the built-in maps for that watch. But Garmin Fenix 5 Plus, there you go. There's a group of people that that one's for. The Apple Watch Series 4, I should also mention that this works with both Android and iOS. You just can't respond to text messages if it's connected up to an iPhone. So obviously the Apple Watch Series 4 unfortunately only works with iPhone users. So if you're an Android user, you might as well not even consider this one. But who is the Apple Watch Series 4? And I would say pretty much any other runner. I mean, the average runner, I would say this is for you. But even super serious runners, I mean, yeah, there are some workarounds that you're going to have to deal with. So like if you do interval training, you'll have to use something like that, or you just won't be able to do intervals necessarily. Personally, I don't ever really do intervals. I'm more of a progression runner. So I start off really slow, and then by the end of a run, I'm running a whole lot faster and actually doing speed workout by the end of the run. But that's how I do it. That's not for everyone. And honestly, the Apple Watch Series 4, for me personally, if I could only pick one of these two watches to personally own, for me it would definitely be the Apple Watch Series 4 number one, because of the fact that it has music, it has GPS that's very accurate, heart rate sensor very accurate, all those things are awesome. And I've probably become spoiled by the fact that yes, I have a ton of options for listening while I'm out on my run. So yeah, that for me is kind of like the selling point of the Apple Watch Series 4. I'm a spoiled runner, I know. But with that being said, let me know what you guys think. Anything that I missed maybe that I should have added into my comparison of these two watches, something that you think is definitely a make or break for one of these two watches, let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.